Well, 29.6%. That's how much property values went up in Lucas County in the auditor's most recent reappraisal. And for some residents, their taxes went up by just as much.
People are upset, and many people have asked our 11 Investigates team to look into the situation, so we did. Here's lead investigator Brian Duggar.
I wondered at first if it was a mistake.
You gotta be kidding me.
I was rather dumbfounded that it went up $105,000.
The concern is, the increased property value.
For more than 6 months, Auditor Katie Moline has faced the unenviable task of telling Lucas County residents their property values and taxes are going up a lot.
This was a perfect storm where there were a lot of new approved levies that voters approved, that also came on the tax bill. So you're seeing an increase in value, you're seeing new taxes, and so I can see why this moment right now is painful.
In the most recent valuation period, county values went up 29.6%.
What I did was I kept all of these papers.
Paul Young of Monclova has tracked his increases for decades.
Basically, you're looking at about 20% was the highest I ever saw.
Until September, when it was more than 50%.
But how do you go from 197 to 305,000?
Many areas of the county didn't, but suburbs were hit extremely hard.
And it was, around 79,000, They increased it to 136,000.
Higher value, higher taxes for Tom Jameson of Sylvania.
On the house and the property went up to like almost $1,300 a half from $700 a half.
More than $100 a month in unexpected expenses.
It's just way out of line, Yeah, I've been retired since 2007.
It was a very divided kitchen originally.
Other increases are even harder to explain.
I had just eaten my dinner and I was full and I was drowsy because I worked, and I started dozing off, and I woke up to a funny smell, like almost a campfire smell.
A fire destroyed Stephen Zawadny's home in 2015. It is part of 5 units in a 1913 row house on North Huron. He rebuilt. His neighbors all left. His home is beautiful. Theirs are gutted. Each increased more than 70% in value.
I would never ever be able to possibly sell my house for the value they raised it to. And I said I would like to invite you to come out here and take a look at it for yourself. And if after looking at it, if you can still justify this increase, then I'll go ahead and pay it.
The county did lower his value. The gutted homes of his vacant neighbors, however, still have 70% increases. His property is not the only fire-damaged home with a big increase in value. 11 Investigates visited several others. A Dearborn Avenue house was raised last week. Its value is up more than 400%. A Brentwood Avenue home, 86%. Pinewood Avenue, 56%. The Miami Street home in which Kimani Latik's body was found, up $5,000 in value. All the properties fire damaged.
With the mass appraisal system, we always want to get it right, and we are committed to getting it right. But there are going to be incidences, like you're describing, where we probably fell short.
Moline's team has a nearly impossible task, 200,000 properties to assess. The mass appraisal system is completed through a third-party vendor who mostly uses home sales, flyovers, visits, but also other factors plugged into a complicated algorithm.
In a mass appraisal, we're really using that higher level pictometry to evaluate the homes. And again, it's that third-party vendor that has the resources, that has those hundreds of staff members to put eyes on these properties, to look at the characteristics that could then go into their property value.
But the Data Cloud Solutions algorithm failed for more than 1,400 properties in September.
There was an error in that formula or in that programming or in that software that our third-party vendor put out that again impacted just these not few properties, but less than 1% of the properties that we evaluate.
Moline has hired a consultant to evaluate how Lucas County determines valuations. Data Cloud Solutions is no longer under contract with the county.
That data error should have never happened, and I want to make it right. And so with that, I thought it's important that there is an independent review of the entire 2024 reevaluation from the beginning to the end, and this data air is part of that.
Now, 11 Investigates has learned Moline proposed a 17.6% countywide increase. The state countered with more than 30%, and she brought it down to 29.6%, which is actually in line with other counties. Montgomery County, which is comparable in size to Lucas County, saw its values go up 37%. In Lucas County, numerous levies have added to taxes, but the 2024 property value increases are like nothing we have seen in the past 2 decades. Only 2 years have seen increases, 2018 and 2021.
The auditor will reissue new values in 2009.
Anita Lopez was auditor from 2006 until 2023.
By 2009, when I'm issuing my first property values, it is the first time since the Great Depression that Ohio auditors lowered property values. So I start my career as auditor dealing with the housing market crashing. So we decreased for the first time in the history of Ohio.
State Representative Josh Williams has asked the state auditor to investigate the numbers generated by Lopez.
And I had multiple people reaching out and confirming for me what some of my suspicions were. And that is the prior auditor artificially suppressed property valuations in Lucas County.
In fact, he says it was for political gain.
Sometimes they would do it just at the behest of a resident who comes in and says, I can't afford my property taxes. And essentially the response from the former auditor would be, well, what can you afford? And then they would lower the property taxes. And, you know, I have accusations that a few weeks later, a volunteer would knock on the door and ask if you would put out a yard sign.
The state auditor confirmed that he's received documents about Lopez, but there's been no announcement of any wrongdoing. And Lopez points to the recession and housing crash as reasons for values being depressed.
Well, unfortunately, politicians are politicians, and sometimes they'll make statements to get attention and not necessarily based on the truth. I think it's well documented, the economy that I was dealing with, the Great Recession plus the pandemic.
Lopez and Moline both believe something needs to be done to fix the property valuation and tax issue.
Individuals who are on a fixed income, who are elderly, who plan for retirement, did everything right. They paid their home off, as you referred to that one gentleman. They sent their children to schools. They paid their property taxation, and now they're being squeezed out of their home by property taxes and the number of levies on the ballot. That needs to stop.
There are good ideas coming forward, but the state has to buy into these. The General Assembly, our state reps, our state senators, and our governor, ultimately have to buy into the importance of changing our property tax system to simplify it, make it easier, and make it so that property owners are not the only ones burdened.
This is a full lot.
And Jameson agrees 100%.
Get these valuations down to normal. This is totally abnormal. People can't live like this.
Now, Williams is supporting a tax deferral plan in the Ohio House. Some of the ideas being mentioned by others are geared toward helping seniors and expanding exemptions for homeowners to cut down on those tax bills. What everyone agrees on is that the current system is not working. Reporting in studio, this is Brian Duggar for 11 Investigates.